Hey, it's Rachel. Today I had an interesting conversation with Richard Rochester. He's another person who can help you when you're buying a house or even selling a house and buying another one. And this is the second in my series of talking to other people who can help you. So I hope what Richard and I discussed is useful for you, and if you have any questions about it at all, you can comment below or you can contact Richard using the details that will be on the final slide. So enjoy and see what you learn. I hope you like it. I'm Rachel. As you know, I'm here from BlueDoor Estate Agents, and I'm here today chatting to Richard. He deals with the money side of buying things, and he's a great person to talk to, because one of the worst things that can happen in my world is that I speak to a buyer or a potential buyer who wants to view a property, and I say, do you know what you can spend? And they say no. And I say, well, that's a bit odd, have you spoken to a broker? And they say no. And I say, well, you need to talk to someone. And they go, oh, we're going to our bank. Don't like that either. So this is why I'm talking to Richard now, and hopefully he'll be able to give us some tips. So Richard, why would we use you, and who are you, and what are you?
Hi Rachel, good to speak to you. Good to see you again. Right, I'm a mortgage broker or mortgage advisor, pretty much, and in hand the two sort of mean the same thing. So to sort of dispel a common myth there. Well, first of all, it needs to be said, to secure a mortgage, you don't need to use a mortgage advisor.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to say that. But I am a mortgage advisor, so I've been doing it for nearly 2 years now, and I am part of Rampton's, which is based in Whiteley, but being completely self-employed as well. So part of me is having that real sense of client loyalty and client care. So the role of a mortgage advisor basically is to act in the client's best interests and to assess their borrowing potential and research mortgages for their based on situation and finances, really. There are many lenders in the market with even more products so on offer, and not everyone will match a client's situation, really.
And that's why walking into your bank might not mean you get the best deal.
Exactly.
They might not have it.
Exactly. There's lots out there. As a mortgage advisor, it's my responsibility to keep up to date with regulatory change, and there's lots of those, and also changes with lenders, especially at the current time with COVID-19. Different criteria is changing all the time, and what lenders will borrow or lend, to borrowers, and just general criteria, really. And what benefits someone using a mortgage advisor is getting that knowledge,
So can you still get a mortgage now?
You can still get a mortgage, although the loan to value is the amount you're borrowing versus the value of the property. So I like to think of it, if you use a 90% loan to value, means you'd have 10% deposit, if you're doing a purchase, for example. But you can, it is a lot more difficult, and there's a lot less products out there on the market at the moment. So I think it's important to speak to a mortgage advisor if you're able to look at properties. And I've actually spoken to clients who are interested in properties, but as you will say, and I'm sure you've said already, the property market is sort of just going nowhere at the moment. So what there is maybe online or whatever, people can't really act on that. But remortgaging is really important, and really still able to be done at the moment, pretty much. So definitely speak to a mortgage advisor if you're within 6 months of your product end date, or even if you're on a standard variable rate. It is important just to get a review done. So get a review of your finances, see if there's a better product you can be on, saving you a bit of money.
I think while people are at home, possibly with spare time, it is worth going through all your paperwork and finding your mortgage paperwork, finding the mortgage offer that you had, and calling someone and saying, do I need to do anything about this? Does this still look like a good deal, or do I need to change it?
you're spot on there, Rachel.
And having the document in your hand
yeah.
is really, really important. So find it, do that.
And it really helps someone like me, a lot to have that information, and we can then search for, a comparable product maybe on a market, and see, like you say, just do a comparison. It's a review. Sometimes people are maybe fixed into their current rate, so it's not in their best interest to move because it costs too much money to come out of it. And why would you want to be spending money if you don't need to? But people do tend to sort of forget about their mortgage. I think sometimes they get a mortgage when they first move, or and I would certainly say it, years ago it was something that I did, my wife and I did, and did just stay with the same lender. Got when it came up to the fixed rate ending, we carried on with the lender and took their new product. But it could be that is the correct and the best option for someone, depending on their circumstances. But again, without a review, how do you know what's out there?
And also, I think what you said before about you acting in the best interest of your client, or when you're dealing with a bank, the bank doesn't have your best interests at heart if you're the client. So you do need someone in between, like you, who is working for you. And I think that sometimes people forget that the bank isn't actually very benevolent, and you need someone to find you the right product, get the right thing for you, because they might not just put it on the table for you. They might, because they expect you to just bump off your fix onto the standard variable. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And when you're talking banks, I would say that's a lender in general, whether it's a bank, it's a side, whatever. But of course, they want people to continue with them on a follow-on product, on a product switch or whatever term you use. And sometimes it is the right option, and it's something that I would advise if it was best, conducting review, and then if it's the best option, of course, that's what I would advise. But you just don't know what's out there, new products for new customers, if you like.
Also, if your situation has changed, so in the time between buying a house and looking at that review, maybe you've had a baby, maybe one of you's working part-time, maybe one of us is earning more, and this puts a different light on things, and different products would be available to you.
Absolutely. But also, if you think about it, you might have had home improvements done as well. So but everything you said and more, really, absolutely. Situations. I think one thing I do say to clients when I first meet them is we're conducting a review in the here and now. We can only deal with the information that we've got to hand, where you are, what you're doing for work, and what your sort of immediate goals are, in terms of whether it's being a purchased property, a remortgage, or they're looking to buy a second home, to buy to let, whatever. You can only look at it here and now. But again, being self-employed and being thinking about the client sort of going forward, I'm looking to keep the client and remain their mortgage advisor for years to come. I'm not interested in just providing a mortgage for someone, a couple, and that's it. Maybe you'll hear from them again, or maybe not. I'll be following up towards the end of their fixed rate term, if it's a fixed rate mortgage, to sort of review, see where we are, and then again you start it again. Where are we now? What's the situation? Are we still in the same job, still in the same circumstances? What do you want to do? And it's about sort of knowing your client, really. And I think in the industry, it's treating customers fairly. I think it's that's what it's sort of referred to, and I think that stands true.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of businesses out there who are not treating customers fairly at the moment, and they're in the media. They're on the front pages of the papers, and there's plenty of businesses that people are going to be less comfortable with doing business with. So finding people who you trust now, and I think this is where the individual working like you and I do, we're not really moved by other stuff. We're here for clients. work for
I
your
think,
client.
yeah, definitely here for the client, here, and building that relationship to drive that forward, and it's confidence in each other, isn't it? You want to be able to build that confidence with someone that, and you know what, I've got a question on my mortgage, or I've got a question about, what I want to do in the future with terms of a mortgage. I know what I'm going to do. For me, call Rich and drop him a, or, again, friends, family, Rich did a great job. Have a chat with him, and and that's how businesses grow, and how your sort of reputation grows, I guess.
In problem solving.
And problem solving, and being honest.
Yeah.
You've got to be honest. There's no point not being honest with someone, and promising something that isn't achievable.
Well, that, especially with house buying, I think that is absolutely true, because the very worst situation for you as a house buyer is that you fall in love with a property and then you find you can't borrow enough to buy it. And
yes.
or what you can borrow, the seller isn't willing to sell to you for that. And that's a really difficult thing to find out when you've already been and seen a house and you've fallen in love with it.
Absolutely. It happens all too often.
So it's why I always ask that question, why this house? What caught your eye? And then my next question is, can you buy it? Could you? If you love it, could you buy it? And that's where talking with people like you is important, because otherwise we're down to heartbreak again.
Well, totally.
It's sad, and I don't like seeing it.
No. And it is hard, even from this side of the fence, when people say, I've seen this property, I love it, and I want it. Can I get it? And sometimes you have to be the bearer of bad news and say, well, no, but this is what you could borrow, for example, because people do forget what they have in the background, and that can be from a sort of positive or a negative side as well, because people have a basic salary, for example, if you're looking at a PAYE employee, but they might have some sort of guaranteed bonuses or overtime, or even non-guaranteed bonuses, overtime, commission, stuff like that. That there are lenders out there that will consider those, or percentage of those on top of a basic salary as well. And some people don't necessarily remember that or think that when they sort of do it themselves, or which lenders will do which. So yeah, but it can adversely be the same as well, where people think that they, or don't remember they've got certain credit agreements in place,
or a car loan,
or stuff like, or a car loan, or a default in the past, or anything like that. But that's stuff that a mortgage advisor would sort of question and ask those important questions from the outset before you start messing around, start doing a decision in principle, agreement in principle, and getting something unfortunately rejected. For example, it does happen because something's not been disclosed or forgotten about. It can have then a negative effect on a credit risk score, credit report. And that's the worst case scenario, but it can happen. So using someone such as myself as a mortgage advisor, it's what we do day in, day out. So we sort of know the questions to ask, and it can save a lot of difficulties later on, I guess you'd want to say.
Yeah, and definitely do that before you've made an offer.
Yeah, that's going over into your
don't go and offer on a house and then find you've totally forgotten that you've got a leased car and some defaults here and there. But that's life. And the thing is, even if that does happen, you learn that needs fixing, or you need to talk to someone about how to fix that, and you can just start again. But also that's about planning, that if you get knocked back once, it's not the end of the world. There are things that you can do to repair your credit history. There are things that you can do job-wise, and you just work towards it again.
Just on a job-wise, for example, just giving you an example, there's some lenders that require a minimum period in employment if you've just started a new job. But then there's others that will take it from day one. So as soon as you started a job, or just require one pay slip. But others will accept a offer of employment, contract of employment, as sort of proof of future income, where that can benefit people as well. Especially if they're looking to move, or think, I'll put it off until later on, but because I'm just about to change job. But there are lenders there with their criteria that could suit.
So the kind of advice that your dad gives maybe isn't the best advice. Plenty of people's dads will go, "Oh, you can't do that. You don't want to be doing that. You need to have been at work for 5 years before you can even possibly consider borrowing."
No, I think
things are more flexible than they used to be.
There definitely is. I think from a personal point of view, I think my dad's given me some good advice in the past, but
but he's not a mortgage advisor.
But I know exactly where you're coming from at the same time, and I think we always try, in most circumstances, to try and sort of listen to our elders, if you can sort of take their advice.
But sometimes they're not experts.
They're not. No, they're not experts, unless if they're also in the same business. But if not, no, it's not, and you do need to maybe look for advice elsewhere, and using an advisor like myself who offers a free review. You're not then losing anything really, are you, just to get a
no. So if I were to say to you, good mortgage advisors, complete the sentence, what would it be?
Complete the sentence, or complete the paragraph, I think is. I would say good mortgage advisors have good communication and listening skills, with the ability to break down the mortgage process clearly, including making sense of jargon. There's a lot of jargon out there that people maybe get confused with, but putting the client at ease, and with that view to building a future relationship past the completion of a mortgage.
Well, that's a long sentence, but it's a good one.
I took a couple of breaths in there, but yeah. But so it's hard to put it into one sentence. I think,
it is. But so from my perspective, how do you work with me and my clients?
I think from a estate agent's point of view, and agents that I work with currently, and including yourself, I think it's that mutual being confident in each other's abilities and what our roles are, and being able to provide that to, so for example, I know that a client, if it was they were coming from you, that what you're talking about in that arena, but then knowing that you're, maybe pointing them in my direction, or that I will be able to reciprocate that, and we're working for the mutual benefit of that client. It's also for estate agents in general, and I think you picked up on it very early on, was when you're showing someone around a property, or when they're coming to the point of wanting to make an offer, you're asking those key questions. Can you afford it, and have you got sort of proof you can afford it? And that's where decisions in principle, or agreements in principle, and I can do a mortgage affordability assessment that would initially give that sort of certainty to someone like yourself.
That's for my seller, that the seller can be sure that the buyer actually can keep the promise.
That they're serious, they're not just going and looking at properties just
sweetie
on a whim.
Shopping. I think also what's useful for me with a broker is that once the sale is agreed, I can keep in touch with the broker and say, how is that all going at your end? Because the lender needs to instruct a valuation, and if I haven't heard from a valuer about them wanting to come and do a valuation, I start to worry. If 2 weeks have gone by and I haven't heard anything, and that's where I can call a broker and say, can you have a look and see what's happening with that? if you've gone direct to your bank, I have no way of contacting a bank to ask that question. But with a broker, you have a different insight into those things, and I can talk to you in a way that I can't talk to a bank. So in terms of being able to keep a sale moving forward, it's really important for me to be able to talk to a broker, and it's really important for me to talk to a solicitor, because the two of you are the thing that keeps it moving forward.
Well, I think just referring back to Peter Booker last week on your video that you did, and I think he sort of said the same thing. We're all links in a chain as well, to provide that smooth process to the client as well. I'm trying to well, from my perspective as well, part of the service that I provide, should an application proceed, it's all the administration with that, and it is being in touch with lenders until an offer is received, but also with conveyancer solicitors, and even to some extent your estate agents as well, to see how it's all going until completion. I don't like to just leave it, I've got a mortgage offer for a client, and then, you know, ta-ta. It's all about that whole sort of ethos of providing that service. So yeah, absolutely. And where Peter said it's about keeping in contact, it's also maybe removing some elements of repetition to work, and keeping everybody involved, and you know, does help. It certainly makes it a smoother process for the client, but also I think for like yourself and myself and someone like Peter and conveyancing in general, it's less of a headache.
Yeah, well, we're all trying to make everything smoother.
Absolutely.
The smooth sale, and this ends up where I end up, where really I do want to sell houses for happy people, and I want to sell them to happy people. And you want to get mortgages for happy people, so they can be the happy buyer who buys the house from the happy person.
Exactly. No, totally.
So yeah, well, I hope that's been really useful, and you've had an insight into why you'd need a broker and why someone like Richard could really help you. So thank you so much, Richard, for your time. And
no, thank you, Rachel.
I'll put all your contact details with this video wherever it appears, and you can definitely call Rich, as you said earlier.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, bye then.
Bye.
Bye.